Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next Sword Art Online Alicization anime review. This one's going to be for episode 37, which is called War of the Underworld, or was it like Great War of the Underworld? The Great Underworld War, I think, is one translation of it. Again, it's not the most interesting title, but this is the return of SAO. So this was initially meant to air, I suppose, in or around the time the whole virus situation started, but it was pushed back. They made the announcement that they wouldn't be going ahead with airing it very early on, so we knew about this. So we have been waiting ages for this. There was already, a break waiting for it to just air then, and now we've had the last, I suppose 3 months as well, or whatever. But it's finally here, and we are going to get the end of the Alicization arc. And I thought this was a really solid way to return. This episode delivered a lot of really good scenes, really well animated. You can tell they're putting a lot of effort into the animation here to make the finale of this arc incredible. And I can tell you right now, without spoiling anything, that the ending of Alicization as a story has so many moments that are going to look so amazing visually. You get a sense of them from the new intro and outro of the this season of Alicization, but it's going to be fantastic to see it when it actually happens. So let's get into the actual episode itself. Like I said, overall I thought it was a good episode to come back to. It was definitely a case of where we stopped for the break last time wasn't the most incredible break point, because it was right in the middle of one of the volumes of the light novels. It was just Sinon's here, let's go on break, and it's well, what about Leafa and stuff like that. So thankfully they returned and answered a lot of those questions, and just straight away got us right down into the big things we were waiting for, of having our third goddess arrive on the scene, Bercouli versus Emperor Vecta, of course, and just in general a very good section of the story here, as well as resolving Sinon's here, but let's actually have her sort of meet up with everyone. So I suppose we'll cover the Sinon stuff first, because it's covered fairly quickly at the start, and that's really about it. But Sinon gets her entrance similar to the way Asuna got her entrance as the goddess Solus. So she gets to come in, kill everyone basically, and then come down, meet up with Asuna and the others. And we of course get the reaction to the actual people of the Underworld. This is one of their goddesses right in front of them, but Sinon has to just suddenly realize oh, they actually think I'm their goddess when I'm actually just a person using this account. And they address, of course, the fact that Austin has already filled them in on the fact that she's from the real world, she's not actually their goddess and stuff like that. So that that's gotten out of the way fairly quickly, and then it's the obvious stuff of Sinon wants to see Kirito, so they bring her in, she gets to meet Ronnie and TS, and then of course she sees Kirito. And it's an emotional moment because it's still Asuna kind of dealing with the way Kirito is right now. And as the setup that we got is, the idea is, as Kirito meets more and more of the people who know him and who he truly is, the hope is that their memories of him being the person he actually is will kind of restore him back to normal. And I suppose we're sort of seeing that already, of Asuna sort of helped to a certain degree already with his appearance, her appearance. Now Sinon, as we see when she hugs him, does prompt a bit of a reaction. He begins to move a little bit, as we know, he's still there to a degree, but it's more of a sort of reactionary type thing. He just reacts rather than properly being fully there. And of course, as was the case in the light novel, she does kiss him on the cheek as well. I thought it was well done. I think some people will view this as oh, SAO doing its whole everyone loves Kirito bit, and they addressed it to a degree. Ronnie and TS are just another female character who likes Kirito, but I thought they captured the tone of this scene quite well, of just being understanding. even though Asuna was right there, that there wasn't any like awkwardness around like Sinon just kissing him on the cheek, given how like close they are. So I actually really liked the way this scene was done, and it's just, yeah, that was a nice kind of way to do it. It ultimately led to Asuna finding out that, oh, Sinon with the Solus account can fly, and she basically has the ability to have unlimited flight. And so Asuna's like, wait, we need this tactically. Follow Alice to try and get her back. So the setup, like we get later on, is that Bercouli is fighting Vecta, and it's not going well. But now we know that Sinon is on her way to that battlefield. So the question is, like, will the battle be over by the time she arrives, or will she have to join in, or whatever? That's the major setup of this. So I like that, in that it immediately gives Sinon something kind of to do. That she is the only one who can get anywhere near Alice, because like she's the only one with flight capable of getting there on time. So I definitely like that. This, I suppose, brings us into the Leafa's arrival, which I know for some people they're going to view this as being sort of disappointing, in that, like, wait, of the three goddesses arriving, why does Leafa's one sort of end up being the kind of weakest of them all? But I don't really view it that way, just because I think it would have been a little bit repetitive to literally do the same thing with Asuna's arrival, then the exact same thing with Sinon's arrival, and then do it again with Leafa. So I appreciate that, like, what they wanted to do is, okay, Asuna and Sinon have to kind of meet up and discuss stuff, so their arrivals are pretty much the same. With Asuna as Stacia, she arrives in, makes the giant kind of chasm on the battlefield, and basically puts a stop to the battle there and then, and defeats Vizago. Basically just one shot, and then is introduced to Kirito. The same thing happens with Sinon. She arrives on the battlefield, basically brings it to an end by killing everyone, and then meets Kirito. So instead, with Leafa, they have her arrive basically off course. She was meant to arrive next to everyone else, but instead, she winds up next to Lilpalin, the orc kind of general on the Dark Territory side of things. And the obvious setup here from the previous episodes was that he was a character who was sort of on the verge of, you know, questioning things. The seal of the right eye is completely in play with him because of the sacrifice that was forced upon the orcs and the person that Lilpalin loved. So immediately it seems like a bad thing for Leafa to arrive next to one of the enemy. And he, obviously we can see the sort of more the dynamic with the orcs of, like, they're, I suppose, technically the most ugly, I suppose, of the Dark Territory forces, and he's grown to just accept that that's how people view them, especially the humans. So he is shocked when Leafa is actually just speaking to him perfectly normal and is being very friendly to him, and just views him as being a human, because she knows the technical details of, this is a game, and you just happen to be on the Dark Territory side of the world, where you had a chance to be from a bunch of different races. You just happen to be an orc, but it's fundamentally a human soul that, you know, I suppose the person within is more representative of who they are rather than their outside appearance. And that's why, you know, that point is so sort of profound to him, of just you know, her basically just making the point, like, well, if you can speak, you're a human. That I view you the same way if you kind of just have that core ability. I don't view your intelligence or appearance as being anything particularly, like, representative of you. So I quite like that, because that's the point of it. You may think, like, wait, it's very human specific and not acknowledging him as an orc, but the idea is that it is a human soul. That's the whole Fluchtlight thing of everyone in the Underworld. So I actually like that point. And it actually makes Leafa's arrival more of a sort of character thing for her and the characters around her than almost like Sinon's arrival. Sinon will get her chance to shine later on, and I love what they do later on with her, but that's a few episodes away, I guess. But I think it also fits what happens to Leafa here, having this bit of an arc with Lilpalin, of just immediately sort of proving herself to him and changing his opinion, that he was already having these doubts, and this encounter with Leafa and then DIL pushes everything over the edge, because that's the thing. DIL is revealed to be alive. She has somehow managed to survive basically being killed from before. I believe her injuries here were the ones sustained from Alice's like giant laser ball thing activating that. She was sort of caught up in it, but we know she has the sort of magical abilities to pretty much keep herself alive. So how did she do that? It's by, you know, doing all this crazy transformation stuff on herself. And look, this is going to be the big controversial thing in this episode of like, whoa, they went really far again with the whole DIL Leafa scene. What were they doing there? This basically is the way it is in the light novel. This is what happens. DIL, grabs Leafa and basically just sucks her life force out to restore herself and taunts Lilpalin while it happens. Yes, I think the anime maybe goes a bit overboard with, I suppose, the length of the scene and showing it, but I think it builds to an ultimately effective character moment of Lilpalin having only met Leafa for like a handful of minutes and sees someone he's, I suppose, effectively known for a while, but who treats him terribly, but he can't disobey the leadership of the Dark Territory because of the rule of dominance, basically, that is the Dark Territory seal of the right eye. He, defies the orders, basically, by being able to fight back against DIL. He's obviously not a match for her because she's just so much more powerful, being having the kind of magical abilities. But he can't stand to see her tortured like that in front of him. And as well as that, it's Leafa's, I suppose, dedication initially to not want to just come in on the scene and just kill everyone, because she knows what she's dealing with here. She knows that these are people too. That was the whole point of the Lilpalin scene, that she technically doesn't know who any of these people are. She gets a sense that, like, okay, they're Dark Territory, but they are still people. And she understands the virtual world and how important it is, and especially this virtual world, that it's much more real here. And that she's not just going to come in and kill people just because they're technically the enemies. So until she sees, I suppose, DIL and the type of character that she is, she doesn't act. And I think it allows Lilpalin to have a great moment of standing up for Leafa, and then for Leafa to have a great moment by finally taking DIL out for good, basically. In addition to, like, it also reveals to us what her goddess powers are. So she's the goddess Terraria. So it's, I suppose, the goddess of the land, basically. So as we saw, as she was, like, basically sucked dry, she just restored herself completely, and also the land underneath her, because she basically has unlimited health is the idea, like it's instant sort of restoration. And that's what DIL was trying to do, was basically to just use the fact that she basically has an unlimited energy source here to make herself more powerful. But Leafa obviously dealt with her right there and then. And that's arguably a stronger introduction than Sinon. Sinon gets to do a wide-scale attack that takes out a bunch of, foreign players, basically. But Leafa gets to take out, like, straight away one of the generals, while also establishing her relationship with one of the other generals. So we continue to build the other side of things here. We saw already in the few episodes just prior to going on break that we're building up the idea that, like, Iskan has turned sides. Now Lilpalin has basically turned sides as well. That the Dark Territory forces are gradually coming around, and we're realizing that not all of them are just the raw enemy. There's no hope for them. They're coming around, meaning that the enemy at this point is primarily just the players being told by Critter about the lies about what's actually happening in this game. And that's where we see the American players here, and we'll see what happens as we go forward. So, yeah, I don't think this is anything to get too upset about, this Leafa scene, because it's one of those things. Was it needed? Probably not. But it also helped to build up when she eventually did kill DIL as being a really big moment. I think you maybe could have made it like not as kind of over the top as they did, but it also means more that they do that they highlight that DIL was just this terrible person, and it's in her character that she would do something like that, torture someone to that extent. She got what she basically, she got her revenge for what happened. It was in my mind, it was a little bit extended more than they needed to, but it was exactly what happened in the light novel. As far as the last two sequences go, we have Bercouli finishing the chase and arriving on the scene to fight Vecta. So we see a better sense for what his abilities are. The fight begins, and we see Bercouli going all in, but Vecta somehow able to avoid these attacks, which are basically sent into the past and so on. Like, how is he going to avoid all of these? But somehow he manages to. And this is where we get, I suppose, the continued reveal of this special ability of Vecta to be sort of more immune than most other characters to the idea of incarnation, and in fact actually be able to sort of absorb it himself, with incarnation being the sort of basically the willpower in this universe to power up your attacks by putting your full soul and your devotion to a cause into your attacks. And Vecta is able to block that because he's sort of a void inside, so he can sort of take that into himself. And then the other sort of tease is that his more offensive ability is his ability to sort of, like, from distance as well as up close, absorb incarnation from people and then distract them basically to the point where they lose focus in battle, and he's just able to, in this case, cut Bercouli's arm off. So Bercouli's in a really, really bad situation, but he immediately teases the idea that he does have his other attack. So we've seen his standard sort of main sword ability, but now we need to see the memory release. Sorry, I may be getting the terminology confused here, but it's like we have his like sword release we've already seen. And now they're teasing his memory release. So that's going to be a big thing. What is the ultimate attack of a sword that deals with time? That's the tease going forward. But the other thing there, I suppose, more character-wise, was that we, I suppose, more heavily saw Bercouli properly, I suppose, accept the role that sort of Alice sees him as being kind of this father figure to her. He like acknowledges that he doesn't know his own parents, but he's, in this case, going to try and fulfill the role as like a father figure to her here by putting himself on the line. And they address the scene that we got like teased from before of him talking previously to administrator and her asking him basically, have you ever like foreseen your death? And so for the first time ever, this is sort of a fight that Bercouli actually sees himself as potentially being able to lose. But that's also sort of a thrill for him as a warrior, and that's what makes it so interesting here to see one of our most powerful characters going into a fight where he feels he probably won't be able to just fully win. So that's great setup. Then we get into, I suppose, the secondary defense here of Asuna and everyone else against the rest of the American players who Sinon didn't take out. So Asuna is, of course, the commander of this force. We get to see her going kind of all out. We've the tease that Vizago is about to enter the battle as well to get revenge on Asuna, of course. And this is when more players begin to arrive out of the sky, and Asuna thinks it's more reinforcements for the enemy. But the first character to arrive is Klein, who clears a path on the battlefield straight away. Really, really cool entrance. I love that they gave him the sort of, debut of like the other characters arriving on the scene. Because he hasn't had a ton to do, so he's a great fighter. Seeing him with the katana there, really, really worked. And so we're going to get Liz, Silica, Egil, a lot of the other ALO players and so on coming in now. And this is going to be great, just to get to see all of our sort of more focused on named characters get to go all out against, basically just a bunch of random players. It's the big battle scene that always tends to happen at the end of these things, but there's so much meaning behind it now because Lisbeth's speech to everyone to get them to join in this battle with their sort of accounts on the line was so well done in some of the last few episodes that it has so much meaning, the people who are going to go ahead and join everyone. So, yeah, great return. Very happy to, finally be back. And yeah, great episode. Got straight into the big stuff. No sort of messing around or kind of teasing anything out. No, just straight in. Boom, boom, boom. Sinon's here, gets introduced to Kirito. Here's where Leafa is. Bercouli versus Vecta is happening right here. And the other characters are arriving on the scene. Episode accomplished a lot and did it really, really well. So I'm very hyped for the remaining episode. So in the comments, let me know what your thoughts were on the episode. But that's been the video. Thanks for watching and bye.